friend. Welcome back to the Becoming Home podcast, a project of fullyabundantlife.com. This month, we are talking about Pride Month. We're super excited for this month because we're really unpacking some old toxic stuff and getting rid of like old fears and old ideas about homosexuality and the Bible and religion. And so we're really excited to be unpacking those things and coming into new love for ourselves, for other people, new understanding of God and spirituality and relationship. Stick with us. Let's get into week 4, our conversation with Brendan Reich.
Yep. All right, here we go. Well, welcome back to the podcast, everybody.
Welcome back, everybody.
You're so It'd be a good time. Hi, Mom. I know you're here. But we're always here. And today we brought Brendan, not Mom's son, Brendan. This is a different Brendan.
New Brendan.
This is, should I even try to explain the familial line here? It's,
oh my gosh, it's complicated.
Your brother-in-law's brother-in-law.
Yeah, I mean, easy. Dang, that was easy.
All right, we did it.
It took us like 30 minutes to try to piece it together a couple conversations ago.
Yeah, so we got it. Brendan is here today to share a little bit about his story into the LGBTQIA plus community through faith, things that he was going through in his childhood. I know I haven't heard a story yet, so it'll be my first time, which is exciting. And yeah, just how he's come to adulthood and being in a gay marriage now.
Yeah.
But I know you talked about, Mom, how when you were talking to him on the phone, he reminded you of this like big brother figure and how he could be present for kind of our younger folks. So we talked to Christy. We've done a couple episodes with her, and that is really to give like parents resources and kind of our maybe older generations, just kind of resources and words and perhaps even a love that perhaps they didn't have before. So our hope with Brendan today is that he's going to bring on just some tools, resources, camaraderie, all the things like for our younger crowd, and just hopefully give some encouragement and openness and hopefully laughter too.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun conversation. Brendan cracks me up like whenever we're at family gatherings. Like, I've always felt so comfortable and at ease, you know, like from day one. I don't know if you remember when we met, Brendan, but it was out at the lake. You and Kale and I think Kale and Mindy were there, and
I think so, yeah.
I don't know, it's kind of like you guys have like a little family clique. Thanks for never inviting me, but I'm just slightly salty that I didn't get to go with you on this last one. But that was where we first met. Yeah, I think it was at Winfield. Maybe you guys were out at Winfield.
Yeah.
I think we didn't. Oh my gosh, that was totally by chance.
It was.
It's all coming back. It's all coming back to me now. No, so yeah, like James and I were there. His family was out there at Winfield Lake.
Yeah.
And we were walking to the bathroom and we saw Kale. And I was like, what are you doing here? And then, but there were like all this big RV, like it was this fancy setup. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I saw Kale's brother. And then he introduced, or I think you came up and introduced yourself to us.
Probably.
And like, I was so impressed by that. I was like, oh my gosh, because like people just generally keep to themselves, you know, especially if you're like a couple relationships removed, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I wasn't that, have not really been that close to Kale's brother, your husband. And like,
yeah,
I just didn't expect that. And you guys, do you know how long you had been together at that point?
Oh gosh, like I don't even think we were engaged at that point.
No, you definitely weren't.
So probably 4 years ago. It had to have been 4 years ago because that's when we bought the camper.
So like, yeah, Brendan just walks up and introduces himself. I'm like, okay, hey, what's going on? What's up? How's it going? You know, but like that was it. It was a hi, how are you? I'm with him, and I'm like, I'm with him, and it's like, okay, cool, bye. Like,
wow, that's really cool though.
I know, but it was so by chance and like random, and like, but you made an impression on me that day, and like every time I would see you at family functions where some weird reason Kale's family and all of us were together, because that doesn't happen very often. Brendan would be there, and I don't know, I just always have felt this, and I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, but like this ease. I've always felt at ease around you, and like some kind of draw. I don't know what it is yet, because we still like don't know each other that well. So I'm excited to get to know you better and like dig into this conversation. And I feel like this is kind of maybe, I don't know, I don't want to be all prophetic or anything, but like, I'm hoping that this experience kind of draws us together a little bit more, and maybe even like the families, like who knows, but like, I don't know. I just have all this hope and all this excitement.
Probably partially my lack of filter.
I mean, that's cool. I tend to, lack of filter myself.
You're in the right place.
Yeah, you're in the right place for sure, because I'm just kind of like, I don't care who knows anything about me. So whatever.
Bring it on.
Like, I could run for president, because I really don't give a AF like what people dig up on me, because my life is my life, right? And I have nothing to hide, and everything that I've done and I've been through, every mistake I've made, it's all led me to here, and it's all been a journey for me to get to where I'm at today. And so I'm really grateful, Brendan, that you're here to share your journey with us.
Yeah,
and like
thank you guys for
Joe
having me.
said, hopefully help some other people in their journey. So yeah, without any more babbling from me, please let us know who you are and like sort of what things were like for you kind of growing up, and it's in your family and your church culture, and like set the stage for us for that.
So my name is Brendan. I grew up in Garden City, Kansas. Very much Bible Belt.
For those that don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, tell us a little bit about
like Southwest Kansas.
Cows and corn.
Yeah, pretty much.
Maybe. Is that accurate?
Yep, and wheat.
Or wheat.
But mostly just the smell of cow manure all the time.
Wow. Really does. Like, you can't drive through there and not smell cow.
Yeah. 100%.
Those towns. Okay, cool. We're with you. Now we got it. We got a picture.
So grew up there. I mean, I kind of grew up, we always were going to the lake and doing all that. So I was always outdoors, fishing, hunting, camping, doing, I guess any normal
what
boy
every Kansan does to pass the time, right?
So I had, aunts that I would go stay with, normally at least once a summer, once every other summer. Didn't know they were lesbian. Didn't know they were together. I don't know if it was because, the family had told them no PDA around us, or anything like that. Because I think I was 16 before I figured it out.
Oh, wow. That you would
that they were
actually, like,
together.
stay with them?
Yep.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah, all those years, I never knew. And then I had heard someone say something in high school of, oh yeah, that kid's gay. And I didn't even know what the hell it meant, to be honest.
Wow.
So I had already started going to church by that point, and was big into going. Spent every spring break going and
when did
building.
You start going to church? Like, did your family go to church when you were little?
8th grade. So I remember going to church a little bit when I was really little, but then we, hadn't gone. And then some friends of mine invited me, and I just kind of stuck there. And so from 8th grade on until senior year, I was there, and I spent, my spring breaks going and building houses. We cleaned up after Hurricane Katrina. Just had a good time, honestly. And then I remember it was shortly after, one of the kids had talked about, a gay kid at school at the church. And our youth pastor just kind of like went off on this tyrant about his dad is gay, and he converts young minds, and that's how you become gay. And I'm like,
Mm.
okay, so being gay is awful. Like, can't do that. But I just had remembered, like, being like, oh my god, like I think that, that's what I've been feeling all these years. Because once I got to thinking about it, I remember back in 5th grade, like, I was checking out guys
Mhm.
Mm.
but never understood it, why
Mhm.
I found myself attracted to them.
Mhm.
And so, I always had a girlfriend, um, never did anything with them.
Mhm. No, like,
And
childhood exploration, like,
mm-mm,
we don't need all,
just
like, details and
just
stuff
kiss.
on this
That
podcast.
was that was as far as that
I think
went.
every adult knows what childhood exploration means.
Yeah.
Yeah. Moving on.
Um, so so yeah, I tried to fight it, prayed about it constantly.
What did your
Um,
prayers, can I ask, like, what would you pray? Like, how did you ask? Like,
just like, please don't let me be like this, make me normal.
make me normal.
Um, I'd like take this, sin away from me, and
Mm.
Mhm.
like it just, yeah.
Where did you first hear it was sin? Was that at, like, the
There was the
church?
youth pastor.
The Okay, that whole, like, his dad is gay moment.
Yep.
Wow.
And so, it just kinda led me down, like, this kinda dark path there for a while, of not feeling like I was worthy, and, um, even though, I was living my life to help others, and, be there for others, and, just always trying to do what was right, I was constantly, without them knowing at the time, kinda being bashed, into the ground of, this is a sin, you know, um, you're going straight to hell. Like, there's no, getting around it, basically,
Yeah.
if you go down this path.
Uh-huh.
Um, and they just made it feel like it was a choice to do this.
Mhm.
And so, I remember I'm like, I'm just gonna have a girlfriend, it'll fix everything. And
Yeah.
yeah, doesn't fix everything.
Mm.
Yeah. Were you hoping
So
that, like, by getting the girlfriend first, like, maybe feelings would come later, or, like,
yeah.
you were hoping, like, by taking on a girlfriend, it would kind of fix you and make you normal,
Yeah.
like you were looking for? Okay.
Mm.
Wow.
So then I came out, senior year, like, I just got tired of trying to fight it,
Mm.
um,
Did you have a
and
conversation with God before doing that? Or, like,
yeah,
had you made any resolutions in your mind about God and, like,
I just had remembered, asking him, to give me the strength to feel normal, and that's what was kind of made me just feel normal, um, was not fighting who I was,
mm,
um, because clearly, like, fighting against who I was wasn't helping.
mhm,
Mm.
I remember, I contemplated taking my life several times because of, how the youth pastor would act. And
Mm.
um, so, yeah, it just kind of went from there. And I had talked to my aunt a little bit, because I'd come out to her first
mhm.
and talked to her, and she really helped me out too. So,
Good.
Was that your lesbian aunt?
yeah.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Is that when
That's
she
so
came out to you?
sweet.
No, I had found out,
Oh, okay.
about a year before,
Okay.
Wow.
I
So
told
you
her.
knew,
Like,
and then so you felt safe, like, talking to her about it.
yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, I talked to her, and I remember, like, fast forward a little bit, I had told my mom that I'd told her, and she was like, "You told her first?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah." I'm like,
She's all butthurt
"She
about it.
can relate to me." And
Yeah.
so I'm like, there was, like, there wasn't a chance for judgment coming from her.
Because Because like, what was it at home? So I feel like we got a good picture of like what you were hearing at church. What would you hear at home, if anything, about like
So I wasn't like super close to my dad by this point. Like he was very much, popping pills, drinking. His form of communication was screaming. Um, so I just kind of avoided him at all costs. And then my mom, like we have a great relationship. And even back then we really did. And I felt like so she told me I remember we were in the car and I was gonna tell her. I was like, it's gonna happen. I'm gonna tell her. And I remembered her saying, I really want you to be happy. I just don't want you to be happy like in that way. And I was like crushed immediately. I'm like, okay, can't tell her.
wow.
And I don't know that she meant for it to be like in a bad way. I think it was more concerned for how people were treated, for being gay. I
Okay.
think was her biggest thing. Um, because
Well,
it
that's
was, I
good.
mean, it was very
It's
taboo,
something. Yeah.
back then.
Especially
Uh,
where you lived.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so it took her a little while to like really, because I mean, we talked about it a lot. But I'll never forget the first kind of like gay joke, gay pun that came out of her mouth. And I literally almost fell over laughing because I was just in shock. And she was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And I was dying like after she said that. And I'm like, thank God, like finally, like we've
Finally, we
gotten
can laugh
somewhere.
about it, or like there's
Yeah.
no tension. Like,
Yeah. My when my bio dad, found out, he was like, "Your life's affecting mine," and like just super irate, which I kind of had a feeling that was coming.
mhm.
Um, and I'll never forget, like I was 18 when he found out, and he started screaming at me, and I started screaming back, and that
Mm,
was the first time I'd ever stood up to him.
wow.
And my brother was like down the stairs and in front of me within seconds. Like it was insane.
Mm,
Um, and me and my brother fought like cats and dogs all the time. So
mhm.
I was kind of shocked when he was like standing in front of me and like, my defender.
Yeah.
Um, and Steve was super shocked about it, who, is my biological dad.
Mhm.
But like him and we haven't talked in since 2017.
Wow.
So, and honestly, like it's easier that way. Like
Mm,
it was a constant like trying to have a relationship, trying to, you know,
mm,
make that relationship work. And then he just would disappear or, find something to be mad about. And so like to me it wasn't worth the heartbreak constantly.
yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, but my stepdad, like he's phenomenal. Like I call him dad, and
Mm.
he loves making jokes. So him and my husband Dane, like they'll sit there and banter and throw stuff back and forth at each other, and like it's hilarious to watch.
I love it.
But
So,
the church ended up kicking me out, like in front of
really?
everybody.
Yeah,
In front of everybody?
I was
In
gonna
front of
go back and
everybody.
kind of ask a little bit more about like how did that grow and shift and change and
Yeah. I remember like I went into church, and like my bowling coaches, because I was a varsity bowler for the high school, um, they went to the same church, a couple other people that I knew. And so I went in, and like as everybody was entering, like there was a ton of people out in the hall, and as we were starting to go in, they were like, "Brendan, you're no longer allowed here. You've chosen a life of sin." And like just kept like nailing me like left and right.
Hey there, forgive the interruption. I do just want to mention that this month we do get into some pretty serious things where people are sharing in their stories about abuse and some topics that could be triggering to some folks. So if you have some triggers around, types of abuse that you have suffered or even suicide, things like that, we have resources to help. But I do want to give you a heads up that those are some of the issues in this month's conversations. And the great thing I'm excited about is that they are sharing about hope and resources and help. So if you want to stick around for that, please do. Just be aware it's in the conversations this month. Also, if you have a chance to support the podcast in any way, if it has helped you, served you, encouraged you in any way, you can head over to buymeacoffee.com/the Becoming Home podcast. We'll have a link in the description or the show notes, and you can buy us a coffee or join the $5 membership, whatever your flavor, you can support us there. But thanks for considering that. Now let's get back to the conversation.
And everyone was like watching at this point.
Oh my gosh.
And so I finally was like, you know what? I'm like, I might have decided to live my true self. I'm like, but I've definitely not been like a child predator like the youth pastor. I was like, you constantly, every single Wednesday when you pick us up to go eat lunch at the church, I'm like, you constantly make comments about girls and them, wearing a shirt that might show a little bit of cleavage. And I was like, so who's really, sinning the most here when you're sitting here looking at underage girls and talking about their cleavage,
Mm,
versus someone who like hasn't made a like didn't choose this life.
yeah.
And so like several people in the congregation, they ended up like leaving with me. Like they told them, they're like, if you're gonna treat someone, who has constantly like volunteered and given so much of himself to the church, you're just gonna oust him for being who he is, then we don't want to be here either. They're like, and clearly, you need to work on yourself, need to pray about like who you're checking out because you have a wife and 8 kids at home. So yeah, and so we all left and I never went back. And it was kind of crazy because like I joined the Navy a couple years later and did a funeral honors back in Garden City. And I'll never forget Mrs. Jackson walking up, and I was so nervous when I saw her. Like I was just like, oh no, like this is gonna go bad. And she came up and gave me the biggest hug and told me how sorry she was, for what had happened at the church that day. And, um, that she still loves me and Jesus, still loves me. And
God bless
she was
Jackson.
so proud of me. And so that took a lot of weight off my shoulders, I felt like.
Wow. Yeah, what a moment.
Yeah.
That's
Powerful.
awesome. So how did so I see how like church changed, but how did like your personal faith change?
I kind of went through a phase where I just was like, you know, I guess I didn't like believe for a little while. I'm like, everyone's coming after me. And then when I went back into the military, I started going to the church there, while we were in basic training. And I just kind of felt that joy again.
Mm,
Um, and so, like, I haven't found a church that I really want to go to yet. Like, I've had a couple offers. There is a couple LGBT churches here in Wichita, that I've talked about, like, possibly going and visiting and checking out. Um, but then just kind of like taking it upon myself to pray and, still follow God without having to, I guess, follow a certain like set of rules that they deem are, what Jesus has said. Um, and I think like my biggest thing with that is just, the Bible's been changed countless times over the last, even 300 years.
mm,
And if I'm not mistaken, like, homosexuality, like, wasn't in the Bible until, like,
Yep.
1959, 1960,
Is
somewhere
that
in there.
that
So,
yeah, I can't I don't I know it's recent. I don't know if it's that recent. I know I've heard that statistic lately that there was one
yeah.
particular church denomination that took set about to translate.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that was the first time that actually Christy mentioned that in
Oh,
our
was it her?
interview with Christy. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I
That
keep
the
seeing.
word homosexual wasn't even in the Bible until recently. Like only
Yeah.
I think she might have said within the last 1 or 200 years. But yeah, you probably would know better than I. So I don't know. We can look it up. We can fact check ourselves later.
Right. So, I mean, so I just kinda followed my own believing in, like, God and, not needing a pastor to, tell me I need to believe or pray or, give money to the church, that I felt like I kinda got away from the church just because of what I saw other pastors doing, somehow affording to drive Porsches and all these other things, so people at their church are constantly giving, and seeing like a lot of churches aren't giving back, helping people who need food or
Mhm.
doing stuff like that. So
Yeah. So do you feel like there's maybe like a kind of a bitter taste in your mouth about church? Is that kind of what holds you back maybe from
kind of a little bit, yeah.
LGBT friendly
Um,
ones?
I don't
Or you
like, I know
had
that I want to. It's just it's been kind of like,
is it triggering?
yeah.
Yeah. What do you think you would
So
need to like see or experience, or is it less of an outside in thing, more of an inside out thing that you're going to need? Like, does that make sense? Does that question make sense? Like, do you feel like it's something inside you that needs to change first, or do you feel like you need to kind of see something, or are you looking for something in a church
yeah, I feel
or
like once I were to see it, then I'd I would know.
mm,
Um, but yeah, so I just kind of, continue to believe and, do things on my own without having to, have a church tell me what, I need to do. And
sure, I get that.
I was curious if you could, I mean, knowing everything you know now and being in the place of life you are, if you could go back to, I mean, even like fifth grade, you who was
yeah,
hanging out guys and you didn't know why, like, what advice would you give to yourself throughout the years as
Mm,
those younger years? Like, what would you tell yourself?
probably to, continue like believing in yourself, and just let myself know that like it's going to get bumpy, but you're going to get through it, to like lean on your friends and, your family that you have, and just believe in yourself.
Yeah,
yeah, because
that's
when
really
you
cool.
were that age, like there were no resources. Like the conversation
None.
wasn't as loud as it is today.
Yeah, no, it was
Like
very quiet.
very quiet, especially in Southwest Kansas.
Dirt City.
It's probably
Yeah.
still pretty quiet out there, but nationally, the conversation definitely has shifted, has changed, has opened up. Even in the church, I think, the conversation is opening up. Not as much as I would like it to in certain places, but the fact that it is great and it's encouraging.
Yeah.
And I want, I definitely want to affirm, those places that are holding space and loving people well. Like, awesome. You know,
Mm,
Yeah, no, I agree.
let's focus on that and like send all of our love and attention to that. And I believe when we do that, that it only creates more and more of that. So I totally love that. And like how along the same lines, I was wondering the you that was really, you mentioned that you hit some really, really dark times as you got a little bit older, I think maybe middle school or high school. What do you think kind of like kept you going? What was it that where did you find kind of I don't know, the will to like, okay, well, I'm just going to see what tomorrow brings, or like, how did you
Yeah.
kind of dig into that?
Um, I mean, I just remember like constantly, praying, and one of my friends' his parents had taken his life. and I remember seeing like the hurt that it caused, like um, my friend and like her family. And so I remembered like I couldn't leave my mom, like was kind of like a huge thing. Um, because of how like my dad was at the time, like my bio dad.
Yeah.
Um, because he, was constantly screaming, yelling, and the belt and
Right.
like um so it was just like trying to make sure I was there for her
Mm.
because my brother had moved out, and so it was just us three in the house. And
Mhm.
like I remember more nights of fighting than like just peaceful.
Yeah.
So
So it was more for
can,
someone else, kind of finding strength
yeah,
to show up for someone else.
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad whatever it was,
It
like
was meant to be there.
because you're meant to be here for sure.
Mm-hmm.
How would you help or like what would you say to someone today? Like I feel like we're in this interesting place today because the conversation is opening up and it has opened up. I mean it seems obvious to me, or like I think I would know what we should be saying to our kids. Hey, I love you.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like why is that such a stretch? Why is that like so hard? And we talked
Yeah.
about this with Christy. Like this is where our conversation with Christy really kind of sat for the longest time, was like, why is it so hard? There's this block for many of us who have grown up religious, and like Christy and I even being so far to have been involved in like fundamentalism and cult like atmospheres where like it's it's your definition of love that really needs to change, right? Like
Yeah.
I would think it would be obvious for us to like, yeah, we just need to love our kids. There's this sort of like block in I don't understand why it's so hard for us to love our kids, but then it's like
they think they are.
Exactly, that's it. Like
they're being taught, if I shut
Sending them to conversion therapy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Christy brought that up, that like all this conversion therapy is so damaging. And like,
Yeah.
there's these whole camps where they send people to like
ungay
them or something. And it's like, oh my gosh. But she did say that some of the creators of these programs have come out recently and like publicly apologized. And
Yeah.
I was kind of disappointed. I thought you were gonna say they actually like came out like, oh, actually, I'm gay.
By the way, a couple of them have.
Whoopsie.
A couple of them actually have.
Really? Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I was gonna say, let's be the nail in the coffin for me.
I mean, like,
oh, just kidding.
Because that's the thing. Like, I don't know, the dark side of religion, I'm gonna call it.
No, you're right.
Is like very confused about what love is. And
yeah,
it's love, but God is love, but also justice. God is love, but also truth. God is love, but and it's like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's love, period. Like,
yeah.
Justice isn't justice if it's not loving. Truth isn't truth if it's not loving. Yeah. So sorry, like all three of us have these like big thoughts right here. But like the question I was getting to underneath all that is, what did you need to hear? Or like what would have made your sort of journey into discovering and being okay with yourself? Like, what did you need to hear from your parents, from your church leaders, from your community?
I felt like just, being a good person, was enough. And like I was so sheltered growing up. I mean, obviously, like I had lesbian aunts who I thought were roommates. And
Yeah. Wow.
so just it being talked about and whether you're gay, you're straight, you're bi, you're, trans, lesbian, whatever, that it's okay. Like, we love you, And I feel like so many parents are like terrified of the word.
Yeah.
And so it creates a lot of like negative tension at schools, because kids, they hear their parents talk about how awful it is, and so then they go and they find the kid at school and bully them, and um, create an even worse environment for someone who, is struggling just to figure out who they are. Um, and it just makes it that much harder on the parents who do have kids who are, trying to figure out what's going on, with their own sexuality.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking about actually a verse in the Bible, which like any chance I get to pull a verse out of the Bible and be like, oh, I've known that my whole life and it actually supports this new idea. I love doing that. Just because I think we've all been raised in pretty like black and white, here's exactly the box you need to fit in type of Christian homes of like, or Christian atmospheres even of just like, here's exactly what this verse means and it cannot be interpreted any other way. But you were talking about how like truth can't be truth if it's not
Loving.
like dipped in love or all those things, because there's literally a verse in the Bible where my mom has it on the wall in her house and it just says faith, hope, love, and the greatest of these is love. The greatest, which means there's nothing greater of these is love. Period. Like that is exactly what you were talking about, and I was just so
unless you're talking to a homosexual, like
no, it's not in there. Like case judgment. Like, that's what the church teaches. Is like
Yeah.
that's not true. Like I don't know. I was even just thinking about how I was really. I mean, first of all, Brendan, I think that your whole life story of how servant-hearted you are is precious and it's so selfless, and I shouldn't be surprised to hear that. But I was sitting here thinking, I was like, I've been steeped in like homophobia my whole life. Like I've been steeped in this idea, and you always see like only all that social media will give you is the worst of the worst, whether right or left. So they show you all the bad, and this is how bad it can get. And it's just I was raised with this painted idea of like anybody in the LGBTQIA community was like selfish because you had to have your own identity. You couldn't just be regular person, like you couldn't be normal. And it's that whole idea of being normal, having to have this identity, and that's not true. Like clearly, like Brendan, you've lived your life for other people. You've lived your life trying to serve people and actually trying to deny who you are because you thought that's what was right. But now I think as you've been able to accept yourself, like there's this beautiful, like I don't think you're not selfless anymore. If anything, I think you have the ability to be more selfless because now you're not over here worrying about, oh no, like am I gonna go to hell? It's I know who I am. I know I'm still loved, and there's a God somewhere in the universe of love who is head over heels in love with who I am. And through that love, like if anything, you can pour out so much more because your cup is full. Like I was sitting here thinking about that. I was like, oh my gosh, I've been steeped in lies. And just I don't know, I just love this new freedom. We talked about with Christy, like having a different love lens. My love lens has just been growing, and it's so cool just to see like I don't know, just to see even how it happens like in real time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we were talking about this, Brendan, in Joellen and I's first kind of introductory conversation for this series this month about when we first decided to honor Pride Month on the podcast. There was like all this kind of like, oh, I'm not sure. Like, what if I say something wrong? What if I do the wrong? Like because she and I both have had a similar kind of like pretty strict, pretty fundamental Christian, what you experienced when you were young. And because we just aren't in that community, you know, so like we don't what words are we supposed to say? Like, are there bad words that like we don't even know are
Ooh,
bad words?
oh my
Like,
gosh, I didn't think about that.
you know what I mean? Like we were so nervous about addressing the, you know, the whole topic, and like
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it okay just to say gay community, or like is that isolating to people who are trans? Like,
Oh my gosh.
I mean, for real, there's so
Yeah.
many, there's so much nuance and there's so many things going on. And because we live in the Midwest, we're not surrounded by it really. Like it's,
Right.
you know, it's just you get up, you go to work, you eat your Cheerios, you know, you do your thing, you just, you know.
There's not like a pride parade going on in
I mean,
Wichita.
it probably is
Probably.
at some point, like, you know.
And it's funny that you talk about, being confused as to like what to call it, because even in the gay community,
Are you
I
guys
don't know
all
what to
looking at
call
each
it.
other like, what are we calling ourselves nowadays?
Like like I struggle with the pronouns. I struggle with a lot of different stuff because I mean, even in the gay community, I'm still learning.
Yeah.
Um, I don't understand like someone who's trans, what they go through, because
Yeah.
I've never had to deal with that.
Not your experience.
But, I'm going to like support them and stuff. Like I remember I got into this argument with this person who had posted um a Facebook post, and they're like, if you're born this gender, that's the bathroom you should use. And so I sent them pictures of people who were trans, but you couldn't tell they were trans. Like, I'm like, so if this person walked into the bathroom with your daughter, what are you gonna think? And he's like, well, that's a guy. And I'm like, nope.
Wrong.
I mean, you're not wrong. Like, it is a guy, but that is a trans guy.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, so, like, because I have, from my previous marriage, like a stepson and a stepdaughter. And my first thought isn't going to be like, oh, that's a trans person. Like, I'm going to be like, that's a dude. Why are they walking into the women's restroom with my daughter? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like that's going to be my thought process. Or I'm going to walk into the men's restroom and I'm going to see this beautiful young lady. Like, I'm going to be like, I'm in the wrong bathroom. Shit. And I'm going to
Yeah.
like try to
Like,
find
oh,
the
got
nearest
it.
exit.
Wrong,
Like,
wrong icon on the door. Oh God.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I just, I wish people
It's
like,
so
because I
hard.
remember it was such a huge thing for a while. And they're like, well, they want to use the restroom so they can molest children.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no.
I think they just need to
Mm-mm.
pee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta go pee.
Like,
I
it was
mean,
just mind blowing to
yeah,
me.
but there's fear everywhere, right? Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
every situation in life, every community, everywhere has fear because it's the opposite of love. So everywhere you
Yeah.
have potential to lack love, it's just fear. It's just fear of something. And we're always
Yeah.
so afraid of what we don't know, what we don't understand. We're afraid to be wrong. Like if we can just have this open conversation about fear and what we're really afraid of, but it takes so
Right.
much courage and
Mm.
bravery. And you know, I long for the day when we can sit across from each other and talk about our fears and continue to love each other. And
Right.
you know, it's happening more and more, but like there are so many more places it needs to happen, like political realm for sure.
Yeah.
You know, but like,
That's a whole nother can of worms.
oh my gosh, yeah,
Yeah.
we're not even here for that. Like, I'm not here for that. Y'all can keep that to yourselves. I don't want nothing to do with it.
Oh, one thing I did want to bring up, because Brendan, you were talking about someone who is like saying whatever gender you're born, that's the bathroom you go to. Something that I
Yeah.
found interesting from our conversation with Christy. I didn't know this. I guess I knew that like intersex existed where you can be born with both, but
Hmm.
there's actually ranges on, I think it's 5 different scales, and you can land anywhere on that scale. Like you can have XY chromosomes, but have female genitals, and you can have XX and have male genitals. Like it's not as simple as what you're born as, because
Right.
anomalies happen. You're born on this scale. Like, it's not as cut and clear as like,
And that
oh.
because
As they want to try to put it.
Yeah.
right. And people say, well, that's just 1 in a million. That's so rare. And
Yeah.
it's like, it's as frequent as a redhead.
Yeah.
Like, okay, it's time to have the conversation, guys.
Yeah.
It's time we just kind of, learn to wrap our arms around each other, love each other, and just have the conversation. Like,
Yeah.
and I think something Joe and I have really both come to plant our feet in is like, it's not my job to save anyone, because that's kind of the argument, right? From the, kind of diehard pitchfork Christian is like, you're going to just let them burn in hell.
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong with you? You're the one that doesn't love them, and it's like, okay, well, I've studied hell, and my views on that have changed. We can have that conversation later, but
Yeah.
it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier about like how we define love and what we've experienced
Right.
as
Well,
love. And so
yeah.
many of us have experienced trauma disguised as love.
Yeah.
And I was talking, we were with some friends last night, and we were talking about, they were sharing a story, replaying a story that someone had shared of a woman who was being abused at a church, and the pastor who was abusing her was invoking the name of Jesus every time he was doing it.
Oh,
And
God.
so now this woman, she went down a pretty rough path in life and self-medicated in a lot of different ways, and found her way out of that and into sobriety. And AA has this term that they use for God called higher power. And that resonated for her, but she couldn't even hear the word Jesus.
Oh,
Like,
no, yeah.
Without having PTSD about it.
Right. And so it's like, we as a Christian community need to understand that there is some massive trauma that is happening to people in the name of Jesus, in the name of God, in the name of, everything that is holy. Like, we need to step off our ginormous pride boxes and like really just get in the mud with people, recognize it's not our job to save everyone. There's someone who already did that. That job is done. Okay, first of all. Second of all, the only thing he asked us to do was love people the same way we love ourselves. So enter the Becoming Home podcast, where we are here to help you remember who you are.
Yeah.
We are here to love ourselves better than we did yesterday, and love somebody else better than we did yesterday. So let's do that. Let's heed Brendan's story. Let's learn from the things that he has shared with us today. And like,
one clarifying thing really quick.
Yes.
You said when we get off of our big pride boxes, you meant people in the church who are overly prideful, not literally people in the pride movement, right? Yeah. As we just made this month about Pride Month, and you said that, I was like, I think she meant it this way.
Okay, Joellen, I thought it was pretty clear.
I think it is. I just,
don't take me out of context.
My goal is to make sure you're in context. So she's talking about people in the church.
I mean, not just church, but yeah, like, when we think, when we think we have the answers, Christian or not, when we are just a human being walking the planet thinking, I know all the things and I'm gonna save everybody because that's what I'm supposed to do. No. Done. It's already done.
Everybody's already been saved.
Somebody did that job already. And I'm so excited because that job is done. That's not my job. And the pressure that takes off people, I don't know, did they preach that at your church very much? Like, it was your job to like tell everybody about Jesus and how they were going to go to hell if they didn't accept him, and like make him their Lord and Savior. Like, was that kind of the MO of
it was very much like, you have to live by these rules, and if you're not living by these rules, then you're failing God. And so that was kind of their MO, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I'm so grateful to know now that the only rule that's been given to us is to love each other.
Yeah.
So my hope and prayer is that, first of all, that you feel loved, Brendan, that you feel like you have stepped into a space with us today that has felt affirming and loving and like, super accepting. And my hope also is that struggling Christians or Christians who think they aren't struggling, but they're not. I don't know. I need to stop trying to even talk to those people. Like they're just not listening. They're not
Like,
here. They're not here.
so
Like the Christians who are like, you're wrong. They're not listening to my podcast.
right.
They're just not even in the
But
room. So I should just probably let that go.
honestly, like if there's one thing, like if there is a struggling Christian watching, there is a movie called Prayers for Bobby,
Prayers
and
for
I
Bobby.
highly recommend them watch it.
Thank you. We love all the recommendations. Where can we find it? Do you know?
Oh gosh, I'd have to look.
Google, like you can just Google like where can I watch
Yeah,
Prayers for Bobby or where can I stream Prayers for
yeah,
Bobby? And that's how we have found movies before.
and it's based on a true story, so
Even better. Is there any last sort of, if you could tell any parent or any kid or any, I don't know, anyone, is there any kind of like last minute burning thing that you want to get off your
um,
chest?
so just for parents to, try to like reach out to groups. Like there's tons of Facebook groups, for parents with kids in the LGBT plus, community. Um, you know, a lot of schools thankfully have started after school programs for, kids who, are in the LGBT community. And then their allies are also welcome.
Awesome.
So thankfully, like that started to become a thing because I think it was the year after I got out of high school, Garden City started one.
Wow. Yay.
Yeah.
City.
So, um, like I wish that it obviously like been around the whole
Right.
time I was there, but like I'm really glad that it is there now,
Yeah.
to help those kids who are struggling and to help them not feel alone.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of like the biggest part of it is like you do feel like you're alone.
Yeah.
Um, when you're going through it. Because you don't know who to talk to, that isn't going to judge you or treat you different. Um, so yeah, like just, you know, there's tons of groups. So hopefully people can realize that they're not alone and there's, all these great groups. And then there's hotlines now as well for, kids who are struggling, for them to reach out to. And, I think a lot of those hotlines are helping those kids find these groups if they can't find them on their own.
Yeah. Cool. But yeah, check your local schools to see if they have any programs and just where you can get involved. I think it was really great. Christy told us about a mom who started she went to the Pride Parade. Her kid came out to her or something. I think it was her kid.
He took his life.
Don't remember. Free mom hugs.
So, if I'm not mistaken, the P flag moms, the movie Prayers for Bobby is about the lady who she kept pushing like constant like prayer post-it notes everywhere and like trying to change her son and fix him. And is she thought she was doing
Thought she was
what she
loving
was
him.
supposed to do. Yeah. And instead he ended up taking his life. And so she started going to those and giving out like mom hugs and P flag events and stuff.
Yeah, maybe it's the same
It might be that same
story then. Yeah, but yeah, like definitely check your local schools to see if they have after school programs or
And if not, make one.
Start
Mhm.
one. There you go.
That's right.
I like it.
Yeah.
Be the difference.
Be the change that you want to see in the world. I don't know why I'm singing so much today.
It's the emotional product.
It's freedom. Like, that's the
Yes.
thing. Okay, I want to drop a little teaser. So this is our last episode in June. July is coming up.
Mhm.
And what's the big holiday in July?
4th of July.
4th of July, freedom, all the things. But we're going to be talking about freedom in a different way, and like freedom from emotional torment,
Ooh,
freedom,
yeah.
freedom to love people, freedom to love ourselves, freedom to like just kind of explore life and what that looks like. And we're not going to be talking about like nationalism or like
No politics here.
I mean, I'm grateful. Like, I was a military wife for 20 years. Like,
Yeah.
I love our military, and thank you also, Brendan, for your service. But it's a different take on freedom, I think, than what you would expect. And so I'm formally inviting everyone back to talk about how to be more free and how to embrace your own freedom and walk in freedom, love in freedom. And I feel like sort of this month of talking about how to love ourselves and love other people better, specifically the LGBT community, I think it lends nicely into freedom, because it feels like a lot of people are feeling trapped,
Mm-hmm.
scared, alone. These are some of the words that we've heard this month, and I'm excited to kind of break free from that and like, okay, now let's break free from that. Let's find places where we can be free, find places where we can be more loved, be more loving. And I feel like that only brings more freedom. So come back
Oh
for
yeah.
July.
Like I remember when Don't Ask, Don't Tells were filled, like that was a huge thing for like being able to serve out in the open, without fear of being kicked out of the military,
Hmm.
because even though they had Don't Ask, Don't Tell, they were still kicking people out for being gay.
Yeah,
Wow.
for
That's
sure.
crazy.
The things that happen in secret
Mm-hmm.
that our country doesn't know about, and yet they think, okay, let me shut up. Let me like love all people.
All people, all time.
All people. Brendan, you're awesome. I appreciate you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate being able to, come here and share my story. So thank you both.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. We
Your
appreciate
story
it.
is going to impact, and your story, someone is going to hear your story and still be on earth tomorrow because they heard your story. So thank
I
you.
hope so. Thank you guys.
Thanks so much for joining us on the Becoming Home podcast. On behalf of Joe and myself, we want to thank you so much for investing your time here. Don't forget, you can head over to fullyabundantlife.com and grab more resources, grab a free guide on emotional processing tools. It's packed full of information over there. The guide has over 100 emotional words to help you identify exactly what you're feeling, more than just happy, mad, sad, grumpy, hungry, whatever. 100 words or more to help you really identify what's going on inside of you so that you can really process that better. Exercises to process. It's giving tons of information, somatic, where the emotion may be trapped in the body. There's loads of information in that guide, all for free. So fullyabundantlife.com, you'll see it right when you click on that website. And then if you need other information, I've got tons of stuff there for you to grab. So head on over there. Thank you again for being with us. We'll see you next time.